Welcome to Fake Love and Flying Monkeys, the podcast where fake love is exposed. I'm Nova Gibson and I am your host. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling.com.au. This space is dedicated to helping you reclaim your worth and understand the impact of toxic relationships with suspected narcissists. You deserve clarity, healing, and freedom from the pain of fake love and flying monkeys. So please leave a review and grab a copy of my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. Let's uncover the truth and take back your power. Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Now, to begin with, guys, I want to issue a trigger warning because what I'm going to talk about in this episode includes descriptions of coercive control, intimidation, and forms of abuse that may be distressing for some listeners. So please take care while listening, guys, and step away if you need to. Okay, so to begin with, there's a question that I want you to sit with for a moment, and that is coercive control domestic violence? Because when you picture domestic violence, I want you to think of what comes to mind. Most people think of bruises, black eyes, and broken bones. They imagine the police being called to a house where someone has been beaten to a pulp. They imagine what they've seen in the movies, those loud fights, screaming matches, and all these punches that land on someone's body. But what if I told you that domestic violence doesn't always look like that? What if I told you that violence isn't just about the blows that leave marks on your body, but about the fear that lives in your body every single day? These behaviours are indicative of coercive control. And yes, that is domestic violence, even if they never laid a hand directly on you. The reality is that domestic violence doesn't always look like what we see on TV. Sometimes it is not a direct punch. Sometimes it is the wall right next to your head. Sometimes it's a glass flying past your face, shattering inches away. Sometimes it's your things smashed, your car blocked in, or hearing those words, "If you leave me, I'll kill myself." So what exactly is coercive control? Okay. Coercive control is when someone uses dominance, fear, and manipulation to control your life. It doesn't have to leave bruises to be abuse, guys. It is about making you feel trapped. It's about making you feel anxious and powerless through intimidation, monitoring, threats, and subtle punishments. The abuser, the narcissist, creates this constant sense of fear so that you end up doing what they want you to do. You end up being compliant and you end up questioning yourself and losing your sense of self and your independence. Now, coercive control, narcissistic abuse always begin quietly. It starts with things that look like love. They want to pick you up from work every day. Perhaps they say you don't need to wear makeup because you're beautiful without it. They want to help you choose your clothes. They ask for your passwords on all your social media, so there are no secrets in this relationship. And because you want to be loved, you take it as care. You even feel flattered. But it isn't love, guys. This is training. You are being taught to confuse control with care so that when things escalate later, you have already been conditioned to accept it. And little by little, you hand over more. Your time, you hand over more than just those passwords. You hand over your privacy. You hand over your independence. Now, what happens when that intimidation enters the picture? One day that mask slips, and it might be small at first. They'll have a little sulk perhaps when you say no to sex. They'll guilt trip you. They'll punish you with silence. But then it ramps up. Maybe one night, as I said earlier, they punch that wall right next to your head. Not you, just the wall. And you tell yourself, well, at least they didn't hit me. But what's really happened here, guys, is this. They have just shown you how easily they could. And now you're scared. And when they parked their car in front of yours so you couldn't leave, well, that was a message, guys. That was a message saying, you're not going anywhere unless I say so. And those times they threaten suicide, which is such a common strategy where they use your empathy as a weapon against you. Well, that was emotional blackmail. That was coercive control because it keeps you trapped. They know that you would feel responsible if anything happened to them. They now make you responsible for keeping them alive. So why is coercive control so often dismissed as being domestic violence? Well, you dismiss it because it's not a direct punch to the face. There's often no physical injuries, no bruises. You dismiss it because you've been conditioned to believe that abuse has to look a certain way. You think if it's not bruises, it's not abuse. But please know this, guys. Abuse comes in layers. It comes with silence. It comes with those slammed doors. It comes in the moments when your stomach drops because you don't know which version of them you're going to get today. It comes with not feeling emotionally safe. You dismiss it because in your head you said yes. You didn't see the invisible force that made you say yes, which was impossible to resist, which was really you just trying to avoid the punishment that you know would be coming if you said no. You didn't see how they wore you down until saying no was just too scary, too exhausting, and too costly. You dismiss it because you tell yourself, well, I'm not being hit. I'm not being screamed at every day. I can handle this. But that's survival mode talking. That's not love. That is not safety. That is fear disguised as coping. And it's a gradual trap. I really want you to hear this, guys. The fact that you can't pinpoint the exact moment that it turned abusive, that is not your fault. That's how coercive control works. It's gradual. It's sneaky. It's designed to creep in so slowly that by the time you realize how bad it's gotten, you're already trapped. You've learned all of these coping mechanisms to survive it. Whispering into the phone so they don't hear you talking to your mum, or timing your calls for when they're not around, hiding receipts so they don't accuse you of spending too much, just walking on eggshells so they don't blow up. Those aren't quirks of your relationship. Those are survival strategies in response to the abuse. And the cost of this submission, well, eventually you realize it's just easier to give in. It's just easier to do what they want, even when it's degrading, even when it feels humiliating, because the alternative, that silent treatment, the intimidation, the fear, that's just too much to bear. And that's the trap. That's the cycle. You submit, not because you want to, but because you've been coerced into compliance. And every time you do, their control gets stronger. I really want to validate your trauma and help you to understand what coercive control is. And of course, to help you to realize that it was never your fault. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples from both a female victim and a male victim, people that came to see me in my counseling practice. By the way, guys, if you'd like to have a one-on-one Zoom counseling session with me, no matter where you are in the world, please just see my website link in the description. I remember one lady coming to see me as a client not so long ago who told me about the nights she felt something was just so off in the relationship with her husband because he would get angry at just dinner being late, just dinner. She would walk in the kitchen and he would slam his fist into the cupboard right next to her face, and the wood would splinter. Her ears would ring from the sound. And after doing something like that, he'd wrap his arms around her and give her a hug and tell her that he loved her. And she actually believed him. He was angry that dinner was late. She should have got dinner on a bit earlier. And she thought to herself that he was great because he actually controlled himself and hit the wall instead of her. Over time, as we spoke, she came to realize, however, that he was really showing her just how close to hitting her he was willing to come, how easily he could without having to leave a mark. Now, before I start talking about the next example, I just want to pause right here to make it really clear that this type of psychological abuse is not gender specific. And I see many men who come to see me who are being abused by a narcissistic woman. So let's talk about a man who came to see me a couple of years ago who was being abused by his wife. He told me that she never raised a fist. She never raised an implement towards him, but she raised her voice. She had contempt for him, and her icy silence, well, that would last for days. She controlled all the money. She tracked his every move, and she would accuse him of things he hadn't done. And still he kept telling himself that it wasn't abuse because there were no bruises. And of course, she was a lot smaller than him. So how could she abuse him? He told me that he remembered standing in the kitchen cornered one night. This happened regularly. She would shove him hard in the chest and her eyes would lock on his with this kind of twisted excitement. And she would say things like, "Come on." She would actually taunt him. "You know you want to hit me? Just do it. I dare you." And in those moments, he said to me, he realized the trap. One shove from him, one raised hand, and the police would believe her. And she knew it. She wanted it. And he stayed frozen because the truth is that men rarely speak up. Not when they're told from every direction that abuse is only something that men do. Now, this man's story can sound heartbreakingly familiar for female victims in these relationships as well. Maybe he never punched her, but he punished her with silence. He cut her off from her friends. He monitored her phone, convincing her she was crazy, worthless, unlovable. And she walked on those eggshells every day, believing that if he wasn't hitting her, maybe it wasn't really abuse. And this is what makes coercive control so insidious. It hides in plain sight. It convinces victims that their suffering doesn't count, that they're weak for struggling. And in the shadows of that silence, the abusers thrive. And when women, female narcissists, abuse men, when they manipulate, when they taunt, when they exploit a system that unfortunately too often assumes their innocence, it not only destroys those men, but it makes it harder for true female victims to be believed. It deepens their silence. It deepens the silence for everyone. Coercive control and narcissistic abuse are not about gender. They are about power. They're about domination and the slow erasure of someone's freedom and their dignity. Whether the abuser is male or female, the impact is the same. Souls crushed, confidence shattered, lives broken. I know many of you listening are still in these relationships and you have learned some pretty amazing coping mechanisms just to survive. Maybe you're that person whispering on the phone to your mum. Maybe you're hiding money in a secret place. Maybe it's you that's making excuses for their behavior to your friends, or maybe it's you that's convincing yourself it's not abuse because naming it feels too dangerous. These are survival strategies. You are doing what you need to do to get through. And I want to honor that because surviving under coercive control takes courage. Every single day you stay safe is a victory. Maybe you still cling to the memory of when it felt like love, when they picked you up from work, perhaps when they said they just wanted to spend all of their time with you. And it felt so good. It felt so flattering that someone cared so much. This is what coercive control does. It blurs that line between caring and controlling until you just can't see it anymore. It keeps you doubting yourself. It makes you believe you said yes freely when really you said yes just to survive. In ending, guys, I want you to remember this. Whether you are a man or a woman, whether the abuse looks like shouting, shoving, threats, intimidation, or manipulation, your pain is real. Your fear is valid. What you are living through is abuse. And I know you may have convinced yourself it's not that bad. I know you may have said, well, they didn't actually hit me, or maybe I did something to provoke them. Please remember, that's the conditioning speaking. That's the cycle of coercive control, making you doubt your reality. The truth is, you deserve to feel safe in your own home. You deserve love that doesn't terrify you. You deserve to exist without flinching at slammed doors, without bracing yourself for the next explosion, without whispering on the phone to your mother so you don't get caught. This isn't your fault. You are not overreacting, and you certainly are not alone. Coercive control is insidious. It hides behind their excuses like stress or alcohol, perhaps. They'll say things like, oh, I just lost my temper. I didn't mean to scare you. But no excuse changes the impact. No excuse changes the fact that you are being controlled through fear. And when you doubt whether it's abuse, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Do I feel safe? If the answer is no, that is your truth. That is the evidence. Because at the end of the day, love should never make you afraid to breathe in your own home. And that brings us to the end of another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. Yes, coercive control is mostly invisible to the outside world, but inside the relationship, it's suffocating. It leaves you doubting your own reality and questioning your own worth and blaming yourself for someone else's behavior. Now, if you are experiencing this in your toxic relationship, guys, please know that there is help out there. I would love to be able to support you one-on-one in an online Zoom counseling session. So please just see my website link in the description. And please get my best-selling book, Fake Love, which will help you so much to understand the coercive control and narcissistic abuse that you have experienced. Now, if you would like to support the channel, every little bit helps. So please, to do this, you can leave a rating and a review. And of course, share. Every little bit helps. On that note, guys, it's bye from me for now. Until tomorrow's episode, remember, you are worthy of love and you are worthy of so much more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.